All right, so now it's time to actually build our scenes. And so we can do that by clicking on the second tab down, called Scenes. And this is going to take us to a page where it breaks down two major categories of lists that we can build. On the left side, you've got your allowed websites list. Now, this means that whatever websites you allow in these lists, that is the only possible options that students can navigate to. Everything else that you do not specify will be blocked. So these can be thought of as a lot more restrictive because the entire environment is simply what you set and what you allow based on whatever you have planned for that day. So I find that these allowed websites lists are a lot more easy to help with classroom management because it doesn't feel like I'm just constantly having to add new websites to some restricted list. The other type of list is the least restrictive. These are ones that you have to build, in my experience, over time as students get off track and they show you websites that are going to interfere with their learning. You have to continually add to these, but they can browse any website except for the ones that we specifically block. These can be thought of as maybe your game sites, YouTube, Spotify, whatever's getting in the way of them doing something that's class related. And basically to prevent the big distractors, okay? Now, in my class, I have three major categories of all of the activities that are considered a part of my lessons. There are activities that are required for mastery, that they absolutely must do. There are things that once they've done that, where they can extend their learning. There's things that they should do in order to enhance their understanding. And then finally, there are aspire to-dos. Now, these are where it's a lot more like game-based, creative, teaching others, like big presentations. And so with that, with their must-do activities, I know that there's only like one or two things at a time that they should be looking at. And so that would typically be an allowed websites list because I only want them focused on, let's say, like Google Education Suite or Edpuzzle. Whereas for should-dos, these are things where maybe they're opening up their websites that are allowed with individual research. Maybe this could include like Canva, where they're actually creating something for a presentation, something along that line. And the aspire to-dos are where it's not a whole lot of restriction, but it still keeps them at least on task in terms of the class. So I'll go through this really quick and show you how you might want to build one of these. I would start, personally, I would recommend starting with allowed websites list and set the tone that we're going to be on task during instructional time. I can hit create list. For this one, I've already got mine built, so I'll just put sample list. I can add a description if I want. I can change the icon color if I choose. But once I've done that, I can click next. And this is now going to be where I choose what websites are allowed and which are not. If you're really needing ideas for what you might want to allow, my first recommendation is to click on this quick list dropdown. This will give you a short list of game sites, the Google Workspace, which is typically good for your allow list. So each one of these that you click, you can quick add all of those by checking that box. If you regularly use any of these other common platforms for your class, like Kahoots, or more importantly, maybe like G Suite, I can click on these. And maybe there are only some of them that I'd like to include. So I can go to these and kind of look at which ones are here. And I can allow all of G Suite if I'd like to. Pear Deck, so on and so forth. This is one where it'll be very unique to you as a teacher. And again, this is another one where if you'd like assistance, making sure that we square away all of the ones that I would recommend starting for any subject, please just reach out. I'd be more than happy to sit down and help you build this out for the first time to get that practice in. But one thing I will show you, so as you're building this, again, I don't need to build one. I've got the three that I initially use for most things in my class squared away. But what I can do is I can actually go back to my scenes And I'll show you an example of what my must do looks like. This is the most restrictive, and this will help me make a key point here. So all of these websites, you'll see that most are admin approved, okay? And these are the ones that I would expect to use on a near daily basis, especially for the essentials of my lessons. And so one big thing is I want to make sure that I allow their accounts login. I want to make sure that I allow Google Classroom, and then all of the different education suite Google apps like Docs and Slides and Sheets. I want to make sure they have access to Google Drive and Google Forms and so on and so forth. But I will say also there is a difference between domains, which you can think of as google.com, and subdomains, which is like forms.google.com. Now here's the thing. If I allow google.com, I allow every subdomain within Google, meaning that might include Google Search, and it might include Mail, which can also include Google Chat. And so if you don't want students getting distracted by chatting with other students, this might be something where you don't enable the subdomain mail.google.com, and you certainly don't want to add in just google.com and everything that might come with it, because that might not be something you want them navigating. For example, I don't have google.com because I don't want my students thinking that they should just simply Google search for answers rather than using the resources I provide. And so that's just a really quick way in which I would build this out to keep students on task. Again, this is my most restrictive environment. And if a student happens to want to go to any site outside of this, they, by design, have to ask my permission and I have to allow it. You'll find that maybe there's a site that students really do need to access and they'll tell you, and then you can just simply go to it and allow it during a classroom session. And when you do that, it will permanently allow it unless you otherwise remove it again. So that can be a very helpful feature as well. I don't want to make this overly lengthy. I think this might be enough to go ahead and get started with building those scenes initially. Again, I would recommend start from the more restrictive, set the tone with the allowed websites, and then for least restrictive environments, you can go more towards the blocked. But that should be enough to go off of for now. And so we'll see you at the next video.